Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today it's the first of my half-time reports. So this video is going to be more of a talking head style video. And don't take this as being the final format. This is just the first of my attempts at this. So please join me now. We'll jump in and we'll take a look at how I got on with my pens so far this month. The ideas with these videos, it's so I can update you on how I'm going with my pens, and then we'll have a discussion point. Today's discussion point is going to be based on a question asked in some of the YouTube comments. So let's first look at the pens. So this month my first pen was this. This is the Delike New Moon 2. I filled this 3 times and I've stayed with the same ink, which is Diamine Writer's Blood. It's such a really nice, inexpensive pen, and it writes so well. I did finish using it over the weekend, and now I've thought, well, I'm not going to refill this. As I say, I filled it 3 times already. I'm going to use some of the other pens a little bit more. My second pen I've been using is this one. This is a Kaigelu 316. In here, I've had Robert Oster Tranquility. It's another one. I filled it multiple times. I think it was twice that I filled that one. I enjoy using it. It's a nice writer. Again, it's inexpensive. Remember, a pen doesn't need to cost you a lot of money for it to be a good pen. All it really needs to do is to let you get ideas out of your head and onto paper and enjoy the process of doing so. And both these cheap pens, they both let me do that. Pen number 3 for this month is This is a Narwhal Schuylkill. This is a piston filler. This is a pen, again, I enjoy using it. I have had some issues with the flow, so that's something I need to look at. And it could be, it just needs a good clean. But I want to use the ink up first before I do that. As I say, these flow issues, nothing major, but there's something I am noticing. Still a nice pen though, I still enjoy using it. Pen number 4. I think this pen's gorgeous. This is a Visconti Breeze. It's got a fairly small nib. It's a steel nib. It's a magnetic cap. I love this. Let's see if I can get to trigger. So just gently push it on and then eventually the magnet triggers and pulls it on. I think it's so nice. I haven't had to refill this yet. It is a cartridge converter, but as you can see, it's getting fairly low on ink now. I may get another couple of days out of it before it needs to be refilled. And again, not sure if I'll refill it. Next pen, Diplomat Aero. I love this. It's a simple looking pen. I love the factory finish. This is, I think it's aluminium. Pull that nib off. Again, another cartridge converter. This one's lasted ages. I'm surprised because it's a broad nib. I thought I would have needed to have refilled it a couple of times, but at the moment it's still using that initial fill of Waterman Audacious Red. My final pen in the rotation is this. This was my newest pen. This is a Pilot Custom 823, and in here I've got one of the Inkvent inks from 2021, and that's Brandy Snap. I'm loving this. It's got a broad nib. I'm going to see if I can get this to focus with the camera. There we go. It's got that gorgeous broad nib on there. Absolutely a pleasure to use it. I'm seeing so much shaded in my writing. If anything, my biggest issue with this pen, I'm too tentative with it. So this is something I'm trying to work out in my own head because it costs a lot of money. So I don't really want to do anything which might damage it. So I think I'm tending to not press as hard as I would normally do. So I'm not seeing everything coming from it. But as I say, I think that's something that I'm aware of now. And I am trying to force myself to give a bit more pressure when I'm writing. Because I've decided not to refill that Delike, I have added this pen in. This is a Bauer 79. And it's got Diamine Woodland Green in it. This was one of the pens that my wife bought me during Advent. Let me see if I can get this to focus. There we are. I think we're... Do you know, I cannot get these to... There we go. It's another gorgeous pen. I really like this pen. I think it was like $4 Australian. My wife bought me a number of pens, roughly same price range, which she gave me during the Advent period. You know, I was doing them in combination with my Inkvent videos. There will be a full video on this pen and the others. I think it's scheduled for release Friday of next week, so keep an eye out for that one. These pens, there's 4 of them, and I've got to be honest, all 4 of them really surprised me. So they're the pens I've been using so far this month, and I've really enjoyed them. The next thing I want to do is answer a question that was answered on one of my YouTube videos. And the question was about, what do I actually use my pens for? And yes, I did give a very quick answer to that comment. I thought, well, this is a good chance to go into a little bit more detail. What I use my pens for actually then relates to what I use my notepads for. And this is what I'm actually going to talk around. When I've spoken in the past about my pens and use videos, I've always said I try to use my pens on a wide variety of different papers. And this is really how I do that. So I'm going to fetch some out. So the first one is this. I only started using this one today. Up to now I'd been using a Clairefontaine notebook. But this is the first thing I do every morning. It's an A5 Rhodia notepad. What I do is I sit down with my cup of coffee, I sit at my desk, and the very first thing I do is I write one A5 page to summarise the previous day. Now I know some people, they might do this on the previous evening, but I find by doing it in the morning, I've had time to think and sleep, and that lets me solidify a lot of what went on. I make sure it's no more than one A5 page. The reason I do that is it's actually all around brevity. I want to make sure that I keep the entries as brief as possible, but capture all the information. So it's training my brain to get rid of things that aren't needed and to just focus on what happened, how I felt, and how things made me feel in general. So that's what I use this one for. And this is a lined book. I'll just quickly show you there. I'll pop that away. Second book, it's another Rhodia notepad. This one, it's got gridded paper. There we go. Now, what I use this one for is, again, every morning, after I've done my journal, I then sit down, and this is essentially what I would call writing practice. So here's today. So how I do this is I do 2 pages every morning. And the first page, it's quotes that come from one of my apps on my iPad, which gives me quotes. The second page is a second app, which also gives me quotes. But I find by using the two, I get a good mix of quotes and sources. I focus here on trying to improve my handwriting. It's not about getting the thoughts out, it's about taking the time and writing nice and writing in a way that I'm learning and improving what I'm doing. I mean, my handwriting, I will be honest, it's atrocious. And by slowing down, I'm able to get it to look nicer in here, which is improving my general handwriting. So it's a really good thing to do. Past few days, I've been recording as I've been doing this, and I've been producing some TikToks, Instagram stories, and I've also been publishing it as a YouTube. Short. That's a bit of a mouthful. Normally I would edit these out, but because of the state of this video, I actually want this to be less edited than I normally do. So I'm going to leave it in so you can hear where I stumble over words all the time. So anyway, as I was saying, I've been doing TikToks and stuff with this, and that's something I want to again get more into. You know, practicing doing different video styles. You know, this talking head is a brand new style to me. I haven't really done it. I've normally been doing those overhead ones. And the TikToks, the YouTube shorts, they're about, again, brevity and fetching it down into a smaller chunk. And also trying out different things that I may then fetch into my other videos. So that's the second notebook out of the way. Again, let me pop that away. The next one is this. This is an launch term, and it's a bullet journal. I'm just going to show you an empty page. I'm not going to show you what's in here because obviously it's fairly personal what goes into this. Similar with a journal, which is why I didn't show you the entry. In here, I do 3 things. I record my annual I call it a theme. I don't have an annual goal. Problem with annual goals, things change that are outside of your control, and that can mean you no longer meet a goal if you set it for too long a term. So I have a theme for the year. This year, I'll actually show you this year's because it's only just started. This year, it's called expansion. So in here, each month, I put some goals. So, I've got to say I'd like 1,250 YouTube subscribers, and also I want to start a productivity channel. I'll touch on that in a little bit. The other things in here is I've got a daily tracker. I track things like the number of hours I've slept, whether I've read or not, how productive I felt the previous day. So various things that I can put a number to, because then by using a number, I can measure progress. The final thing that I do in here is I use it to set my agenda for every day. So at the start of each day, I'll go through my calendar, which is on my computer, on my phone, and my iPad, and I'll pull out my appointments and I'll write them into this book. I'll also go through my task management system, and what I do is I identify 2 or 3 tasks that I must get done that day, and they then go into there. Now, I do a lot more tasks than 2 or 3, but I find by picking that small number, starting to work on them, that then gets my juices going, and then I end up ticking off 10 or 12 things. If I'd have put 10 or 12 things into the bullet journal, I'd have panicked when I saw it because it would look too much. So by cutting it down to a small number, that really helps to kickstart my process. So again, let me pop this away. Now, them 3 notepads, you'd have seen I've turned around. What I do is I've got a bookcase behind me and they live on there, so they're easy to reach. So, the next notebook, this is one you see quite regularly. This is a B5 and it's by Oxford. Here we go. And it's used in the optic paper. You'll be used to this. This is what I use for recording my pens in use videos. So each month I would set that up. This is actually a brand new one. I filled the last one in December. It was quite lucky, really. The other one which you'll see quite often is this. So this is a black and red notebook. There we go, black and red. This is A5 size, and this is what I use when I'm recording my normal videos. So if I page through that, you'll see we've got lots of different pens in there. And I use one page. Most of the time, I don't put anything on the back. So what I do is when I want to test to see how pens are going, then I'll write on the backs of those once they've finished recording. So again, just another nice, easy notepad to use when I'm doing my videos. We now get on to things that, to be honest, you'll never see me doing. Next one I've got is this. This is a dirt cheap notebook. I mean, you can have a look at the paper here. It's really cheap. It's really rough. And this notebook, what I do is I use this when I'm reading books and I take notes as I'm reading. Let me see if I can get to a good page. Now the paper is so bad, you might be able to see I only use one side. So what I do whilst I'm reading is I take notes. So at the top here, I've got the chapter. Then I've got my various notes that I'm taking. So we've got a page and a bit there. What I then do, after I've finished writing the notes and reading through the chapter, I then go to my computer and I type these notes into my knowledge management system, which is called Obsidian. Now, initially, I would just take a photo of these and put the photo in, but I found I wasn't getting any value from it. So by the act of typing up my notes and then thinking about the notes, and I'm rephrasing them and I'm pulling things together, but I'm also able to use that to link at the same time to other notes within my system. So I'm really building up a knowledge tree. So I find that by typing it, it helps with solidifying that knowledge. And I think that's a worthwhile endeavour. Move that to one side. The next book I've got, make sure there's nothing there. I'll show you this page. This is what I call my rough book. Just quickly flipping through it. I use that for rough notes. I might do some writing practice in it. It's dirt cheap. I think when I bought that, it was 3 for $5 Aussie dollars. It was dirt cheap. Really not very good paper. But what I use it for is really when I'm at home that goes all the way around my house with me. My poor wife, she gets fed up with seeing it. And it's there so that if I have a thought, I can just jot it down. So I'm not going to lose things that come into my mind. Now, I've tried doing that by, making a note on my phone. But I find that the phone, it gets in the way of me having the thoughts because it's a bit of a pain in the butt, really, to be honest, to use the phone. But just having that pen and that rough pad there, I can just jot it down and move on. And I find that way I'm not losing anything that I've come up with. Next one we've got. This is an endless recorder. So again, you may have seen this in some videos. This is what I use for testing inks. Again, in the videos, I only use one side, but then I'll go back through and I'll use the other side. So here, this is where I was testing out my inks for January to see what they would like on this Tomoe River paper. There's some other inks I was trying out. So I try and keep this to really experimenting with inks. If I go to a pen club meeting, now I don't go very often, about an hour and a half for me to get each way. So it's a bit too far, but I do try and go 2 or 3 times a year. But this is the notepad I take because again, it's 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. So if I'm going to be trying anything, at least it's some nice paper to use, especially when you're using someone else's pens. Okay, next pad. Again, you see pages from this in a lot of my videos. This is by Gale and Leather, and it's 52 GSM paper. So in here, this is where I do my samples of writing for my pens. So this is where I put my thoughts. Now, what I do with this, again, as I've said, I've got this knowledge management system. So I would take a photo of it and I put it into my knowledge management system and I cross-reference that by ink and by the name of the pen. So I can actually go and look at how these look on there, and it's also got a link to the page. So up here you can see that one's page 105. So I can quickly go and actually look at it and see what it looks like on paper. So I don't need to spend time searching through that. So that's all the A5 size ones. I do have another one. Unfortunately, I forgot to pull it out. I use a separate pad for meeting notes. And that's mainly because I want to have something that I can take out of the house. I don't like taking out that rough book. I think, that's for at home. That's for stupid notes that I might come up with. I don't like taking out the book that I use for making notes from books because the idea of that is it's for making notes from books. So I have a separate, again, it's a fairly cheap notepad, which I would take when I go to see a client or when I'm going for a meeting outside of the house, just so it's something there that I can scribble rough notes on. I have another notepad I'll show you in a second, which I actually use for the meeting notes. So it looks a bit odd because I turn up to meetings with 2 notebooks, but they both serve different purposes. One is talking about things. The other one is for me to jot down other thoughts that I have, which are unrelated to that meeting. It makes sense when you use it. I know it's a bit hard to describe. Right, I've only got a few more to show you. So the next one I've got, again, this is another dirt cheap notepad. This is A4 size. It's just hard-backed. And this is what I use for planning my videos. So this is where I write the script. Now, obviously, today's script isn't on here. Today's script, I don't really have one as such. I've got one which I typed and then scribbled notes over, just to give me a rough structure for what I wanted to talk about. And now that I've moved it, it won't stand up. I don't know, Gary. You shouldn't go touching things. There we are. I've stood it back up now. This is where I write the scripts for most of my videos. And as you can see, they're in bullet point format. And they may span multiple pages. So this is from the Pens in Use video. No, it's not. This is from a top 5 video that I did. Which one is this? You would have seen this already. This is actually going out. For me, it's going out tomorrow. But for you, it would have gone out 3 days ago. I do try and record my videos a little bit in advance, so I've got time to edit them. This is how I do most of my scripts, though. It's just bullet points. And the idea is I have a structure that I use when I'm recording. So if it's an unboxing, I like to take it out the box, talk about the pen, talk about the ink, do a writing sample, give you my first impressions. So that's just an idea, and I try to keep this very similar structure. And yes, it does vary between videos, but the idea is to have a structure And yes, I know I've just gone a little bit higgledy-piggledy here. But I'll be honest with you, one of the things that frustrates me with a lot of other videos I do watch, a lot of them, there is no structure. And after about, I'm going to say 2 minutes, my brain switches off. I carry on watching the video, so it's there playing, but then I tend to pick up my iPad and I'm checking Facebook, I'm checking my emails, I'm just doing other things and only half listening. Whereas I find videos from creators where there's a good structure, I tend to watch those videos for a lot longer and pay more attention. So that's that next one. Again, it was a cheapo notepad. You know, my scripts are throwaway. The next one, another A4 notepad. We're back to Rhodia. So this is one where I can rip the pages off at the top, as you can see. I use that notepad, that's for planning. So when I need to plan something, that's the pad I go to. And what I do is usually I take it and then I go to a coffee shop, or I'll go, if I'm staying at home, I'll go and sit on the patio. I try to get away from my desk when I'm doing my thinking and my planning. Because sometimes I think if you stay at your desk, it can actually restrict your thoughts, where if you get somewhere different, it does enable your creative juices to flow a bit better. So in there recently, I've been using that. As I said earlier, I'm not going to say launch my productivity channel, I want to relaunch it. It was actually the first channel that I did, and I wasn't happy with where it was going. So that's been on hiatus whilst I've been getting this channel up and going. So my plan is now, from the 1st of February, that channel is going to be relaunched. And it's all about personal and team productivity. So I was using that pad to plan out what I want to do, what's the structure of the videos that I want, what type of videos, how often. All my thinking was captured in there. Why I like this notepad for doing that, as I said, I can rip off the page. So then when I get home, I can still type up all my notes, which is what I do. I type everything up, because once you've thought, when you actually start typing up, as I said before, you start to think more and you start to create more linkages and you refine what you're doing as part of typing it up. But then I file away that piece of paper in a folder which is specific to the project that I'm working on. For me, it works really well. So that's that notepad. Other things that I have all around. Post-it notes. I've got 2 different sizes. I've got a little tiny one and I've got the bigger one. What they're used for, they never leave my desk. And they're there so that when I'm working on something else, if something comes into my mind that I need to either do or think about, I jot a note on a post-it note. 1 thought per note, and I put it to one side. Then later on, when I've finished what I was working on, I can then come back and look at those notes. Again, I used to do this by having a note on my computer. But I found again, that gets in the way, because by the time I've switched from writing and thinking to the computer, typed what I was going to do, and then gone back to what I was doing before, even if it was another task on the computer, my mind would have gone blank, and I would be then having to restart or repeat what I was doing. By using the post-it notes, it gets out of the way. Just pick the pen up, write it down, off I go. Don't need to think about it again. Don't need to switch out of what I was doing. It's just there and it just works. So that's what I use my post-it notes for. Next, I've got this. This is a little notepad. This one is Velvet Tartar. This was actually by, what's the name of the company? It's based in Italy, and the company's name has gone out of my head completely. I know it was part of a pack called the 7 Senses of Paper. Fabriano, there we are, I knew I'd get to it. So this was 7 notepads, all this size. And these are really good. As you can see here, there's my shopping list from yesterday. What I do with these, again, with these pads, their pages come out dead easy. So I can now throw that away. There we go, into the bin. But this notepad, when I'm out of the house, I always wear cargo shorts or cargo trousers. I love all the pockets. And this fits perfectly in a side pocket. So I have this pad, and I've got a Quaker Sport, or I've got my Cult Pens mini fountain pen. Just depends what I fancy that day. And they go in there, so I've always got a pen and paper with me, no matter where I am. We're nearly at the end. I've got one more to show you. So the next one, the final one, sits in here. This is my Galen Leather A5 folio. Now, normally on this side, I've got all my pens that I'm using that month. There's 6 slots, so I've got my 6 pens. But then the other side, I've got this Rhodia pad. This is just plain paper, and again it's one that I can tear off. So this is what I use for my client meeting notes. As I say, I have that separate pad where I jot notes that aren't related to that meeting, because otherwise things get mixed up and you never know where you are. What I use that for, I'm with a client, so I take notes at the meeting. I come home, again, I type them up. I love doing that transcribing from the paper into the computer because, as I said, it lets me think. Then once I've done that, I rip the page out and I put it in my folder for the client. Again, I like to keep things together. I like to keep them organised. How often do I go back and look at them? Not very often, to be honest, but they are there if I want to. And again, that's the beauty of being able to rip them out. So rather than having to go through one notebook, which has got all clients' notes mixed up, I just have one source of truth to go to. That's what I use my pens and my notebooks for. By using all these different notebooks, this is where I try out different papers. You know, I've got a wide range of papers, and over the course of a month, each pen is used on each of those multiple times, so they really get a chance to show what they can do for me. I do have a load of other notepads, but I'm not sure what to do with them yet. They may come into the rotation in place of one of these when they're filled. But I do like to get new notepads. I like to try them out. I like to see how the ink works with them. And that's why every so often I will do a notepad video. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope it answered some questions. If you have any questions, please drop them down below. I'd love to be able to build up a list of questions which I can answer in videos like this. Please hit the thumbs up button every time you like, every time you comment. Just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. And I'll talk to you again soon.